Hi, and thanks for joining us. This is TPL Media. I'm Mike, Bradie, and Paul. And if you're just getting to know us, thanks for joining. If you're new to the network, I hope you enjoyed the program. Please, if you do, tell a friend, comment, participate, become part of the community, and certainly don't hesitate to lend your support. We appreciate it. On Friday of last week, we did an interview with Maxime Bernier and then got into a car and drove to the Liberal convention in Montreal. Talk about political whiplash, but that's what we did. And we're here to talk about what that experience was like and share a little bit of of media with you that we shot while we were there.
Yeah. And, thanks, Mike. And I didn't go. So I was really appreciative that you guys did the drive and got there.
Paul, you were missed. I'm not going to lie to you. There was perspectives you would have brought to this that would have been delightful.
I'm sure I would have. But, it was interesting. I was watching on TV. So I was moving around a couple projects on the weekend, and I was moving around, and I kept watching to see what was coming on. It was very quiet. Mm-hmm. You didn't see much about it. I think finally Saturday afternoon, flipping back and forth between the masters, we saw like a half hour of his speech, and then we saw him, this is the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, walking through the crowd, doing a love-in of handshakes, and then done.
He's a very huggy Prime Minister, as it turns out, huh?
He is, and a lot of people want to see him. It's, it's the movie star effect, right? Yeah. We really love to see our politicians now, and it's created a whole micro stardom in Canada and also in the U.S. But so, there was that, but that was it. And it was funny because I'm listening to you guys, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm hearing there's a protest. So I wanted to start with that. So there was a number of protests? Well, and who were the protesters?
Yeah. There was multiple protests, but they were outside of the Palestinian protests that kind of were doing their own thing that I've seen.
Okay.
All of these other protests were kind of together. Everything from communism to religion.
Did they out the Palestinians? Did they get outed out of the protests, or they just decided
they were off to the side? They were on a completely different portion of it.
It was interesting because they chose a different part of the building.
Yeah.
So when we arrive on Saturday morning, don't forget the Friday before, Marilyn Gladu came and stunk the place out and made Liberals lose their mind.
And with that, we rolled in just as the convention was finishing. So we got into town around 9:30, and we had started seeing everyone kind of flood into the building. And it did kind of see like it was a depressive kind of like, we were driving around the town and we're like, everyone kind of looks sad, and we didn't know why.
A little toned down.
Yeah, we didn't know why.
Around the convention center.
Well, Friday, so just to let you know, as you're driving up, there were a lot of really short, not so positive comments about Marilyn Gladu and the Ford crossing. Mm-hmm. I think media did pick up on that, and they just, they hit on it and then they left it. Yeah. It was like, okay, that's odd. And then that was it. And they didn't dig into who she was, what her views are.
Oh, they sure did on Friday.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Friday night, I think the internet had its time. And then Saturday, we heard about it firsthand from the delegates and the groups inside of the actual convention.
So it was a pretty rough interview, that, and we'll get more into this, but it wasn't lost on delegates there.
Okay.
This floor crossing it's not all lollipops and sugar candy. It's got a certain amount of, it has a stigma attached to it. And we can talk more about that. But as we arrived the next day, I thought to myself, now we had been to the Conservative convention.
Yeah, I was there.
And I'm sorry, but I thought it was kind of lame.
It was very boring. Very boring.
Hugely. Well, that's the definition of it.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
Not a lot of people there. No. Just not a lot of media running around. It just seemed very dead, very boring. I've seen conferences for, sleep apnea machines have more energy than they.
Yeah, and this definitely had a different vibe to it. There was a different energy. And that brought with it, of course, the Prime Minister arriving on Saturday brought with it all of the protesters, which were positioned and contained in a park right across the street. Actually, why don't we have a look at that right now?
That's him. That's right.
Okay, now you've seen the protest. What I will say with regard to the protest was, first of all, what you saw in there was a lot of the federal workers unions, different subsets of parties and philosophies out there. and groups that were trying to get their message across. We had a conversation you'll see later with one of the communists out there protesting. And it was really obviously well organized.
Very well organized, yeah.
But under heavy police scrutiny.
Yep.
So let me show you one other little piece of video. So now there's a huge protest going on, and a parade has gone around the convention center where all of the protesters organized themselves into a single parade. It was quite remarkable, and they made their way around the building.
It felt like a Mardi Gras New Orleans kind of a parade,
It was
more
really-
than
yeah.
a protest. Like it was
Yeah.
very well organized. Everyone had smiles on their faces. There, as you can see from the
In the
video,
video,
there's
yeah.
dogs. There's a little bit of everything. They're dressed up in outfits. It's fun.
That one of the best Mark Carney heads I think I'll ever see in my life, Mardi Gras style. And then right at 3 o'clock, this.
Mere minutes ago, communists, religions, unions, workers, educators, there was a vast amount of them behind me. But the one thing that I can say since it's been cleared out, they had the best Mark Carney head of all.
You know, Brady, you looked, and I think you maybe felt a little lonely out there.
I felt a little lonely. Usually when you see something get cleared out that fast, there's tear gas still lingering in the air. But as nice as those people were, it seems like the actual removal of them was probably pretty nice as well.
Yeah,
we were only gone for 10 minutes and came back, and as you can see, I was the only person left in the entire park.
I kept thinking as we shot that little bit with Brady showing himself alone in the park there that we're going to be removed. There's no way we're supposed to be
Somebody's
here right
coming to
now.
get me at some point, yeah.
But the protest promptly ended as the prime minister arrived. So he was not faced with any of the protests.
No.
Okay, so it looks like kind of like a John Wick movie, to tell you the truth, where all of a sudden you snap your fingers and everyone just goes stage right. But
Paul,
it's a little weird.
It was exactly like
It's a
that.
little weird. Okay.
Yeah. We don't want anybody in the square. Here comes the king.
So let me just recap, because I'm listening to you guys as you travel, and it's kind of funny because I'm like, when I get a break from the stuff I'm working on, I go, what's going on? Oh, there's a protest going on here, but it's very organized. So when I'm looking at that, I'm thinking that's pretty organized, right? Like,
It's very organized.
yeah, like you said, they have their dogs.
Cordial.
So, yeah, was there coffee served? Was there?
It was there
a
was
bagel?
music, there was
Bagel
games
time?
going on. Yeah,
Okay.
there was snacking.
I don't know how else it could have been organized more peacefully. It was quite
Bottles of water handed out. Like it was pretty
Really?
nice. Yeah,
And then-
it was really nice.
Gone.
Gone instantly.
Okay. All right. So-
Like you threw down the Batman smoke bomb, and by the time it cleared,
and then we
everything was
heard
gone.
the horns blasting for the arrival of the king.
Yes.
And dun, da, 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 and
Okay.
protesters gone. And so that was an interesting,
interesting.
little experience that we had there. But overall, the convention center was alive with activity.
Oh, it was so much of a contrast from Calgary.
Yeah.
Like the energy, the youth, seeing that much youth around. It looked like a college campus.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I wanted to kind of do the comparison because the purposes of the two conventions, I think, were different a little bit. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
I think on purpose, the conservative convention was actually put together just to get him a vote of confidence.
Yes
So,
or no on the ballot paper.
Yeah. So let's everyone get here. And, they even wrote, yes, you agree Pierre should be, the way they even staged the question. So people were kind of directed to, just tick yes and let him move on.
It almost felt like a formality, like it had to be done.
Yeah.
Not that they wanted it to
A bit
be
of a fundraiser where you got to vote.
Well, I think after the election, they had to do it, and they had to they wanted to get a overwhelming majority so they could show that he had support. So they weren't looking for huge numbers to show up. They weren't looking for large debate over issues. They were just looking to get to the vote, do the vote, and get out of there. So it was kind of, as soon as the vote happened, it was like speech. Okay, we'll wrap up.
Everybody's
we're
at the
gone.
casino. Yeah, having
let's
a
go to the
drink.
casino and have a drink, and then let's get on a plane and get the hell out of here, right? Thank you for coming and placing your vote for me.
Great description. That's how it felt.
Very much
and,
felt like that.
And not a lot of discussion about what went on in the delegate meetings and the policy meetings and all of that sort of stuff. It was all kind of kept, I guess, under wraps. It felt a little like a little cultish, to be honest with you, that if you were in, you were in. If you weren't, you weren't. Of course, we weren't. And I'll get to this, but we're 2 for 2, Paul. We got kicked out of the conservative convention and we got kicked out of the liberal convention. But
we walked ourselves out. We put ourselves in the situation.
oh, really? A young man named Anthony, I believe, walked us out, as
Thanks,
I
Anthony.
recall.
Thanks, Anthony, for
You're
being
very
such a
kind to
gentleman.
us. In fact, it was an easygoing experience, even that. But that we are not traditional media is definitely something we taste everywhere we go now, no matter how kind we are or what our mission is. People at the party level are frightened of what will end up out there on non-traditional media. So I will say to that group, this is what we're doing. If you like it, great. If you don't want us there, it doesn't matter, because we go anyway, and we still talk to the people that are in attendance, which I think is the most important group.
I don't want to leave the little bit of bait out there saying that we got kicked out without actually reeling in this fish and explaining it. So we had spent
Brady, you got into the fountain, okay?
So we had spent the day doing what we set out to do, not to be aggressive with media, not to say, hey, everybody, look at us, we're here. We just wanted to go and ask these questions. Like Mike had said, the question was, if you had one question for our prime minister, what would you ask him?
Yep.
And we were asking delegates and supporters of the Liberal Party what that question would be. So we felt like we had gotten our day done. Mark Carney's now rolled into town. Like I said, the protests are cleared out. Myself and Mike
Kind of lonely, actually. Everybody's gone inside.
Everyone's inside, and we're just
No
kind of
protesters left.
We can't buy any people any more coffees. We bought all the coffees. Everybody's
did.
gone. So the next step would be, well, let's try and buy our way in. Well, we couldn't do that. So we just walked in, past security, and just walked in. And once myself and Mike started filming some stuff in that area, which you can see here, once we got done filming that, I looked at Mike and said, I feel like we're the only two people in this entire area out of the hundreds of people that are here right now that don't have badges. Maybe we should go, because CSIS is starting to look at us. Like, we're starting to see some suits and people kind of walking around. Who are these guys?
That is literally word for word what Brady said. Hey, do you notice everybody else has badges? I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
I don't think we're supposed to be here. Maybe we should have went through the metal detector. So then we go and find the media table, which, Mike, I don't know if you want to elaborate on why this was weird, but the media table was behind the security in a zone where media couldn't actually get to without a delegate badge.
So unless you were pre-approved and got a
okay.
badge sent to you in the mail or whatever the case is, maybe it was issued before, but
Don't come.
No, it's the last day. Nothing on the media table. One poor individual there who then gets approached by Brady and I saying, hey, so they won't sell us a badge, and we kind of want to go inside and see the prime minister. So can we have media passes? Now, this astute individual, Anthony, well done, said, and I quote, why don't you guys have badges? We said, well, I said, and maybe this was not wise. I said, badges? We don't need no stinking badges. And he said, well, you actually do. I have to escort you out.
Yeah.
And that was the end of our tour. But we did, as Brady pointed out, have a really interesting day of talking to people. A couple of things that I want to note. One is, while everybody had something positive in their heart to take them to that convention,
Right.
everybody we spoke to had a message for the prime minister that was very much their own. This individual wants to talk a little bit about, where are we getting the dollars from to go to war?
That question would be, where do you intend on getting all the money for the military expenditures you're planning on in this budget and future budgets?
Yeah, and so there you go. One of the comments, by the way, I love on this piece of video, it made me laugh really hard. Communists? Protesting communists? Okay. So that was, feel free to comment. But that was, so we got, that's a very interesting perspective. We got a communist saying, okay, well, you know what, we all have different things, but I am a Canadian, and I'm curious, if we have to up our 2% to appreciate into NATO, and we've made all of these commitments, where exactly is the money coming from?
Right.
That's a pretty serious question. Now, here's an actual supporter of our prime minister, of Mark Carney and the party, and they have a question as well.
The first question I would ask is, I would appreciate a rationale behind allowing Marilyn Gladu to join caucus. Quite frankly, it caught my attention when she joined caucus. She has previously voted to keep conversion therapies legal. In the past, has said some rather obnoxious things when it comes to scientific misinformation, and even ran previously to the leader of the Conservative Party. And her riding, she won by over 50% to the Conservatives. So it certainly caught me by surprise when she crossed over to the Liberal Party.
A moment right out of today's stories and headlines. there's a liberal saying to us, Mark Carney, what are you doing bringing this person over and allowing them to cross the floor with regard to Marilyn Gladu?
Yeah.
So once again, guys, what we're seeing is a party that is not necessarily in line with everything that the prime minister is doing. And you actually did some backroom checking on what was going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yes, it was a very festive affair, but behind the scenes, there was a certain amount of dissent and a lot of disagreement.
Yep. So various reports and various insiders, I'm not going to out anybody, have put this information out there that inside of these meetings on Friday of what topics would be discussed, that the youth movement, so the youth movement for 5-10 years inside of the Liberal Party here have been told that we want to be the economy friendly. We have to be green movements and carbon taxes and all of these things. And now that the talking points were more centrist and based on economy and resources, that this new young group actually had a problem with this.
Oh, what are you
and
doing?
They started a bit of a tiff. Nothing, there was no chairs being thrown like previous conventions and things like that. But there was a definitely a dissent from the young group towards the older group and the traditional liberals saying, what are you doing? You're steering so far off of what our mission statement is. Like, what's happening here? So there's been a lot of fighting going on this weekend in Montreal amongst the Liberals.
And the youth were having their own election on the floor while we were there to find the group that would represent the youth in Canada in the Liberal Party. And their tacticians as a group put together really good campaigns for both of the groups that we saw.
Yeah.
And both of them were very, very liberal oriented. In other words, they wanted to pull away. They wanted to see the prime minister pull away from the center, which I like to point out is difficult in times like this. But it seems to me that the rhetoric or the philosophies that they've been imparted on within them have only that to say. We need to save the environment. We need to put special interests first. We need to make sure that students are cared for in a better manner. Things that you would expect youth to come out with, but they feel, I think, a little defied by the prime minister.
Yeah, well, and we actually sat down with one of the youth, and we'll take a look at that now.
One question you would take to the prime minister.
One question I would say, how would he, as an older gentleman, as a new politician, engage with you? Because we're on the ground, us boots on the ground, we can only do so much as young people, but we need help from the top party brass, from the older liberals to kind of mentor us and help us and sort of teach us what to do. That's what.
So yeah, even the youth, like I said from the very beginning, I love seeing youth involved in politics and being out there and having energy. As you could tell, that young gentleman was excited to be a part of the new Liberal Party, the young liberals, right? We didn't see any of that at the Conservative convention. So it was refreshing to see that.
Well, can I throw just, and before you move on, it's interesting, again, the different setup or dynamics at the two events that I noted as talking to you and attending one. Conservatives tend to use influencers. They tend to use that as their marketing campaign. So they bring in a bunch of kind of paid influencers. They put them out there. They get people to follow them based on sort of influencer tactics, right? That's their
one-liner,
clickbait.
A lot of that. A lot of that is kind of the way they go at it. The liberals do it a different way, right? They get their youth to buy into the climate agenda. The parents, the liberal parents of the kids, kind of indoctrinate them into this thinking. So to leave that is a very big directional course change, because all these kids get into play. Liberals traditionally, from my experience, and especially on the federal side, they're all very good at following a line. You go to a conservative convention and quite frankly, no one can line up. No one can find a lineup. No one wants to follow each other. No one wants to go in the same room.
Oh, this was orderly, man.
Right? You go to a liberal convention, man, they get right in line. They follow each other. They sing the same hymn. They do this. But they're singing the same hymn based on a doctrine, right? as soon as that doctrine changes, that's a challenge, right? Because all of a sudden you've kind of brought these kids and these people into this over the years, telling them this is the way it should be because you're saving the world for them.
Yeah. And then they show up and it's a completely different story. Yeah.
But that leads to the Gladu and the way you're actually forming the majority to the challenge, because now you're starting to bring people who haven't been indoctrinated or the same issues. They're not basically following the same policies, ideas, thoughts, insights. So now you're bringing a whole group of people in that don't follow that. So that's a challenge because,
you could feel that. I mean, I think that there was a youthful element to this group. That's one thing I also noticed. The demographic of people that attended this conference as opposed to the Alberta conference with the Conservatives, I mean, it was night and day.
Oh, completely night and day.
I mean,
even when we were leaving at the end of the day,
youth,
kids
represented.
Oh, there's so many. It looked like a university.
But I don't know if you noticed, and it's kind of funny because I was watching a couple mainstream channels over the weekend that did right after the speech talked about it. The conservative reps that come on speak much different than even the liberal representatives that come on and talk about the speech and the conference and everything convention. Are very polished, very developed. They actually, they a lot of buzzwords. They speak, again, the way they're, the conservative group, or representatives that come on, quite frankly, they're a little more guttural. They hit it square on. It's a different, it's just a different way of approaching it, but it's a little more hardcore on the conservative side. It's got a lot of buzzwords and speak on the liberal side.
Well, that's where the buzzwords and speak and
get developed.
Yeah, that's where they
literally developed on the liberal side. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
When you watch it, you're watching the two parties trying to explain the speech on TV, and you're like, wow, were they even at the same speech?
We did have an interesting experience, and I'll share it. I know Bradie probably would feel maybe like we shouldn't. Sorry if I'm doing this.
Yeah.
We approached one of the youth. She was running for one of the positions in the youth party, and she was up for election. And I said, would you like to speak to us for a few minutes? And her reaction was to look at Bradie and I like,
up and down.
Why would I speak to you guys? And she walked away. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, we are two middle-aged white guys standing here asking you to tell us about your platform. We are the
wearing true patriot love sweaters,
of
right?
who you have in mind.
Yeah.
All right, I got you.
And therefore, I can't even speak to you. And I thought to myself, that's indicative of a Liberal Party that I knew previously.
That's a shunned Liberal Party member. You don't get that from them. But what was the nice gentleman behind?
Oh, and then of
what
course,
did he say right after?
He said, "Oh yeah, don't worry, she's not going to win. I'll speak to you." So there was recognition there. At the same time, I don't know if she won. I hope she had a good convention either way.
I hope she didn't.
But the one thing I will reiterate is we have a party that has delegates that went out of their way, paid money, went inside, spent 3 days, spent money on a hotel, much like we saw in Calgary. And in the end, they're not 100% drinking the Kool-Aid. They're not happy right now that the prime minister is moving to the center. They're not entirely happy that they are seeing people join the party. The big tent discussion was a big one we heard there too.
Yeah, big
Not
tent.
everybody loves the big tent theory where everybody can come into the tent.
yeah.
Because now in the tent, they have conservatives that are going to pull their prime minister and their leader closer to the center and further from the left. That was noted.
One piece of footage that I have to share right now is we actually ran into Mark Carney's biggest supporter, like his biggest fan. And you'll see this right here.
I can tell you something about Mark Carney. By God's grace, I'm a believer. I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. God gave us a right prime minister on right time. Yeah, he is doing great. He is doing great. I will tell you my history, sir. I was a conservative before. Whenever I took the conservative membership, I took it for 5 years. So once Mark Carney get in, the way he is doing it, I cancel my conservative membership. I'm working for the Liberal. He's having a great vision about Canada. Great vision. I can tell you something. 21st century belongs to Canada.
So that gentleman had just announced that he had left the Conservative Party. He believes in everything Mark Carney's doing, and he thinks that this is the right time kind of presented by the universe for Mark Carney. He is here to save Canada.
Well, as you heard him say, He's an immigrant to Canada.
Yep.
He bought into what the conservatives were saying because he wanted to be part of a more economically focused and more fiscally responsible. Mm-hmm. But in the end, he just feels that Mark Carney is doing more for the country than Pierre Poilievre would do. And speaking to him afterward, he was even saying, I don't know what Pierre Poilievre's stand is anymore. If I understood what his platform was, but he just wants to argue. And I think that was his. Now, we had a good discussion about that because he pointed out as well that over the last 2 weeks, Pierre Poilievre has been out there saying some pretty powerful things, trying to gain back the steam that he had leading into the last election.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's going to work. We've got a bit of a distance to go here.
And this is why it was good for us, our team, to go down and talk to everybody. It doesn't matter what party it is. I'll go to the NDP convention. I'll go to the Green Party convention. Start a purple one. I'll show up there. I just want to know what everybody's thinking, because the only way we can get actual truths and actual, situations dealt with is by talking to each other and trying to figure it out. I know that sounds cliche, but this is what we're doing.
So here's the other thing I noticed, and I want to point this out to Canadians that want to make a difference. Protesting is not a bad thing. It requires some protesting out there. Mm-hmm. You can go through many ways, many means to do it. Canada, you are the most polite protesters I have ever seen, and you're not out there in droves.
No.
It might require that you're out there in droves, to be honest with you. There was a very orderly group of dedicated people that were set to be there. But the average Canadian did not show up to where the Prime Minister would be laying out his platform and talking to his party. Mm-hmm. That, to me, is an interesting statement on where Mark Carney is with Canadians. Nobody seems to really want to, I guess, get involved. And there was a decent protest, but it wasn't tens of thousands of people.
Well, and I thought, because, the provincial election's coming up in October of this year. And
right.
I thought when you guys headed there, I thought, for sure there'd be a lot of people mulling around, because the gentleman who's representing the Parti Québécois, he's actually looking for separation. So that's his main platform item. Yeah. So I thought, this is going to be interesting.
Christophe, what's that gentleman's name again?
Paul St. Pierre.
Paul St. Pierre.
Paul St. Pierre.
There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to shout that.
Yeah.
Paul St. Pierre.
Yeah. No, but so Paul St. Pierre is looking for, the separation for the Parti Québécois. And so I thought for sure there'd be a lot of people mulling around talking about their issues, a chance to get their issues. But
maybe there was, but we didn't run into them.
Well, you would have seen them, right? If they were there, they'd have been outside the building.
The issues were the issues that you saw out there many times before. It was unions demanding better wages. And by the way, we have an episode coming up on minimum wage I think you're going to want to see.
Yeah.
That sort of labor movement was there, a little bit of representation for different parties that were small, the Communist Party, which is trying to make a comeback among the youth in Montreal. But the truth is, there was not a huge amount of Quebec-only sentiment, which I expected as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Well, my final thoughts on this whole thing is actually it's kind of a segue away from the actual convention itself, but how beautiful Montreal really is. Montreal's Parliament buildings, Montreal's architecture down there, beautiful. Very, very.
Wait. There's a but coming. I know you well enough, Bradie, to know this kind of complimentary setup can only really have a hammer at the end. So what's the hammer?
Can we spend less money on changing light bulbs maintenance and more on power blasting? Just hire 2 guys to go around and power blast the city. These things are rotting apart. The flagpoles have so much dog urine on it that it's creating murals. They look like Van Gogh paintings on the flagpoles. Like, come on, guys, clean the city up. It's beautiful.
I really think that there's something to be said there. Montreal, it has such old buildings and they require such maintenance.
Yeah.
But as we were walking around, Brady's like, oh, for the love of God, get a Karcher.
I just love architecture. And when I see, rotten water stains from 20 years ago, I'm like, this can be fixed with a power blaster.
Anyway. I wouldn't mind giving a shout out to Deb Schultz, who did everything she could in her power to try to get us media passes, but we do not qualify. We are We are
We're
renegades.
too non-biased, I guess. Right?
We are renegades, Paul. Did you know?
Yeah.
But the good news is the experience that we had kind of gave both of us an understanding of what it was like to be a delegate at a Liberal convention. And this time around, frankly, it was a message to the Prime Minister directly from his party. There was not a lot of rah, rah, rah. I think everybody's happy with their Prime Minister, but the party wants to see some changes.
Well, let's throw this question back to us just to close this out. If you could ask our Prime Minister one question, Paul, what would you ask him?
Well, I think it's similar to our interview we did on Friday. It's about the constitutional issue and how we're going to address it right now. Because I think, we've talked about it many times. We have Alberta and Quebec sitting now talking about leaving Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about referendums and with everything going on in the world and the changes in our reliance on resources, oil, gas, minerals, mining. What are we going to do to keep them in the fold and how are we going to make that work? And I think it's a big issue right now. I think you can focus on majority all you want. I think coming up in the next 6 months, they're going to be on the table and we're going to be having the conversation. So that's the key thing, because Canada without those two provinces is not a Canada.
It's not Canada.
No. Mike, what would you ask the Prime Minister?
I would ask the Prime Minister a pint of Guinness or Molson Canadian. What's it going to be this summer? Because I think we need you here at home, even though Europe might be calling you on summer vacation. I think there's a lot to be straightened out here at home. So I'm just curious, are you taking summer vacation or are you going to pull all this together?
Well, my question was the same before the Liberal Convention, and it's the same after the Liberal Convention. Who do you know on your Rolodex that you can call right now to release the full Epstein files?
That's not a bad question. What we forgot about? Did we take a break from that for some reason? You know what made me laugh? When Trump said that he was giving an extension on the deadline to Iran, one of the senators stood up and said, "Oh, that's great. So while we got a couple weeks off here, how about we open up those Epstein files, huh?" Like, it's so funny.
As much as it's a joke, it actually is true.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's get to work, guys.
Okay, it was a good experience.
I loved it. Yeah.
Montreal is a great place. It was good to understand what's going on there. I think our Prime Minister has some challenges within his own party ahead of him. And if it's a majority, even more so. There's a lot of pressure associated with that. I wonder if he can herd these kittens, to be honest with you.
One more controversial statement. You guys might get mad at me, but smoked meat is overrated.
How dare you? That's insanity. What is wrong with you, Brady?
I just wanted the comment section to go nuts.
Paul, next time you and I from Montreal.
Yeah,
okay?
forget Brady's at home.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time. And if you see us at your convention, you might want to show us the door. We are very adept at taking that direction. Thanks. Talk to you.
Patriotic means looking out for each other and fixing things together.
True patriotism is being in the country you love, surrounded by people you love, and great weather.
Being a patriot is being a part of your community and caring for it.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, patriotism is the one thing we all share.
It's okay to be critical of government and still be a patriot.
It's gratitude to your country.
Of course I'm a patriot. I'm Canadian. It's my home.
Well, actually, true patriot love is the mission.